High Coordinator Thexian Vel stood before the massive viewing screen of the command ship, watching Earth slowly turn beneath them. The planet looked dead. Ice covered everything from the poles to what used to be warm lands. No green anywhere. No signs of life. 50,000 Earth years, said Science Commander Yextal Moore, reading from his tablet. The Ice Age reached its worst point and never stopped. All surface life should be gone by now. Thexian nodded slowly. The Velthari Coalition had been watching Earth for a very long time. They had seen the early humans building fires, making tools, and starting to form groups. The species showed promise. But then the ice came, and everything changed. Begin the awakening protocol, Thexian ordered. This world was meant to support life. We will give it that chance again. Around Earth, 12 massive ships moved into position. Each ship was the size of a small moon, filled with machines that could change the air and warm the planet. The Coalition had done this before for other worlds. They would melt the ice, fix the air, and bring the planet back to life. Maybe in a few thousand years they could bring some animals back too. Deep beneath the Korean peninsula, Dr. Kang Hyun felt the ground shake. He was working late in his lab 3 kilometers underground in the city of New Busan. The shake was small, but his machines noticed it right away. That's strange, he said to himself, looking at the readings. The ground here never shook like that. Their city was built in solid rock far from any fault lines. He called Engineer Park Da-un on his communicator. Da-un, are you seeing these readings? Something is happening above us. Park Da-un was in the main engineering center watching, dozens of screens that showed everything about their underground world. The air systems, the power from deep earth heat, the water recycling, the growing areas for food, everything that kept 50 million people alive in their hidden cities. Yes, I see it, she replied. But look at this. She pointed to another screen. The surface temperature is going up fast, too fast for natural causes. Dr. Kang Hyun left his lab and took the fast transport system to the engineering center. The tunnels were wide and bright with clean white walls. People walked and worked everywhere, just like they had for thousands of generations. Most had never seen the surface. Most never wanted to. When he arrived, Park Da-un showed him more data. The temperature up there has gone up 5 degrees in the last day. That's impossible unless something very big is changing the air. They both knew what this might mean. The old stories said that one day something would change on the surface. The elders always said to be ready, but ready for what? Above them, the Velthari ships worked without stopping. Massive machines sucked frozen air into space and replaced it with warmer gases. Solar collectors spread across the sky like giant metal flowers, focusing heat down onto the ice. Other ships began dropping small devices that would slowly release chemicals to make the air better for life. The process is going well, reported Fleet Engineer Zethara Lin to High Coordinator Thexian. We should see major ice melting in 6 months, full atmospheric restoration in 2 years. Thexian was pleased. Earth would live again. It was too bad about the humans, but that's what happened when species couldn't adapt fast enough. The Coalition had seen it many times before. At least they could honor the species by making their world beautiful again. In New Busan, Council Leader Nam Tai-jin called an emergency meeting. The city's leaders gathered in the Great Council Chamber, a round room carved from living rock with a dome that showed images of the stars. The surface is changing, Nam Tai-jin announced to the 12 other council members. Our sensors show massive energy sources above us. The ice is melting faster than ever before in our recorded history. The Sati council members looked worried. For 50,000 years, their people had lived safely underground. They had built 12 great cities connected by tunnels that crossed under oceans. They had learned to make everything they needed from rocks and earth heat. They had books and schools and art and music. They had everything except the surface world their ancestors remembered. What do we do? Asked Council Member Kim Yoo-jin. If the surface is changing, maybe it's becoming dangerous up there. Or maybe, said younger Council Member Park Min-seok, it's becoming safe again. Maybe this is what our people have been waiting for. Dr. Kang Hyun presented his data to the council. The numbers were clear. Something with incredible technology was working above them. The energy readings were beyond anything their people could produce. "We have 3 choices," said Nam Tae-jin. "We can ignore it and hope it goes away. We can hide deeper and hope it doesn't find us. Or we can send people to look and learn what's really happening." The council voted. It was close, but they decided to investigate. They would send a small team to the surface for the first time in thousands of years. Scout Captain Lee Woo-jin got the job because he was the best at dangerous missions. He had explored the deepest parts of their tunnel systems and found new places to build. But going to the surface was different. Nobody knew what was up there anymore. "Take 5 people," Nam Tae-jin told him. "Use the best protection suits we have. Go up, look around, and come back quickly. Don't take any risks." Lee Woo-jin chose his team carefully. Engineer Oh Ji-hwan, who could fix anything. Communications specialist Choi Min-ah, who was the smartest person he knew. Security officer Kwon Dong-min for protection. And medical specialist Dr. Ro Yoon-ji in case something went wrong. They prepared for 3 days. The protection suits were the best their people could make, designed for the poisonous air and deadly cold of the surface. But the air was getting warmer, and that worried them. Warm air might mean new kinds of danger. The access tunnel to the surface hadn't been used in over 2,000 years. It took a full day to clear the rocks and ice that blocked it. When they finally broke through, sunlight poured down the tunnel for the first time in anyone's memory. Lee Woo-jin looked up at the bright circle of light above them. Somewhere up there, something was changing their world. In a few hours, he would know what it was. Above them, the Velthari ships continued their work, completely unaware that deep beneath their feet, humanity was preparing to return to the surface after 50,000 years underground. Scout Captain Lee Woo-jin climbed the last few meters of the access tunnel and stepped onto the surface of Earth for the first time in his life. The sight took his breath away. The world above was nothing like the stories from the old books, where there should have been endless white ice. He saw brown and gray ground with patches of melting snow. Strange metal towers rose from the earth every few kilometers, humming with energy and glowing with blue light. And in the sky, massive ships moved slowly across the clouds. "By the ancestors," whispered Engineer Oh Ji-hwan as he climbed up beside Lee Woo-jin. "Those are not human ships." The 5 humans stood in a group, their protection suits making them look like small white robots against the changing landscape. Their suits had everything they needed to survive on the surface for several days. But now they wondered if they would live long enough to get back underground. Communications specialist Choi Min-ah pointed her instruments at the nearest tower. "It's putting heat and chemicals into the air," she reported. "Very advanced technology, much more advanced than ours." High above them, on the main Velthari command ship, Science Commander Yextal Moore was staring at his own instruments with confusion. "Sir," he said to High Coordinator Thexian, "I'm reading something impossible. Life signs, multiple life signs. And they're organized, structured, not random like animals." High Coordinator Thexian floated over to look at the screen. The Velthari didn't walk like humans. Their bodies were long and thin, and they moved through their ships by floating in the special air they breathed. "Show me," Thexian ordered. The screen displayed a map of the Korean peninsula with red dots scattered across it. But these weren't small dots on the surface. They were massive concentrations of life signs deep underground. And they were connected by what looked like transport tunnels. "How many?" Thexian asked. "Approximately 50 million in this area alone," Yextal replied. "And sir, I'm detecting similar patterns under other continents. This appears to be a global underground civilization." Thexian felt something he had never experienced before. Complete shock. In all his centuries of life, in all the worlds the Coalition had restored, they had never found anything like this. "Send down a survey team immediately," he ordered. "But keep them at a distance, we don't know what we're dealing with." On the surface, Lee Woo-jin's team was taking pictures and collecting data when Security Officer Kwon Dong-min spotted movement in the sky. "Something's coming," he warned, pointing up at a small craft dropping down from one of the big ships. The craft was beautiful and strange. It had no wings but floated like it was swimming through the air. It was silver and blue, and it made no sound as it moved. "Should we run?" asked Dr. Ro Yunji. "No," said Li Wujin. "If they wanted to hurt us, they could have done it already. Besides, we need to know what they want with our world." The craft landed about 50 meters away from them. It was bigger up close, about the size of a small building. A section of the craft became transparent and something moved inside. Then part of the craft opened, and the strangest being Li Wujin had ever imagined stepped out. Xenobiologist Commander. Zethara Lin was used to meeting new species, but she had expected to find primitive survivors, maybe living in caves and using stone tools. Instead, she saw 5 beings in advanced environmental suits that looked almost as sophisticated as coalition technology. Zethara Lin was typical of her species. She was 3 meters tall and very thin, with skin that changed colors based on her emotions. Right now, her skin showed deep blue patterns, which meant she was very surprised. She had 4 arms and large eyes that could see many kinds of light. When she spoke, the sounds came from organs in her chest, not from a mouth like humans. The 2 groups stared at each other for several minutes. Neither side knew how to begin. Finally, communications specialist Choi Min-ah had an idea. She took out a small device and began projecting mathematical symbols into the air between them. Simple things first. 1 + 1 = 2. The square root of 9 = 3. Zethara Lin understood immediately. Mathematics was the same everywhere in the universe. She responded with her own device, showing that she understood and adding more complex equations. Within an hour, they had established basic communication. Numbers led to basic concepts. Basic concepts led to simple ideas. Choi Min-ah showed images of atoms and molecules. Zethara Lin showed star charts and planetary orbits. But the biggest surprise came when Choi Min-ah showed a 3-dimensional map of their underground cities. She displayed the tunnel networks, the power systems, the water recycling plants, and the massive populations living beneath the surface. Zethara Lin's skin turned bright yellow with amazement. She immediately began transmitting everything back to the command ship. On the ship, High Coordinator Thexian watched the data stream in with growing disbelief. The humans hadn't just survived the Ice Age, they had built a technological civilization underground. They had fusion power. They had closed-loop life support systems. They had transportation networks that spanned continents. "How is this possible?" he asked Yextal. "No species has ever developed this level of technology while hiding from environmental disaster." "It appears," Yextal replied, "that we may have underestimated what desperation can make a species accomplish." Back on the surface, the communication session was getting more complex. Choi Min-ah was showing images of human history, pictures of the great ice coming, pictures of their ancestors going underground, pictures of thousands of years of building and learning and growing in the deep places of the earth. Zethara Lin shared images of the coalition, pictures of many different alien species working together, pictures of dead worlds being brought back to life, pictures of the great ships that traveled between stars to help struggling planets. But when Zethara Lin showed images of other species that the coalition had helped, Choi Min-ah noticed something troubling. In every case, the helped species seemed to become dependent on coalition technology. They never developed their own solutions again. Li Wujin was watching everything carefully. This alien seemed friendly, but he was a soldier, and soldiers learned to look for dangers that others might miss. "Ask her," he told Choi Min-ah, "why they came to our world." The question was harder to communicate, but eventually Zethara Lin understood. Her response was clear. They had thought all life on Earth was dead. They came to bring the world back to life. They were surprised and happy to find humans still alive. But Li Wujin asked the next logical question. What happens now? Zethara Lin's skin patterns showed confusion. In all of coalition history, they had never faced this situation. Usually, when they found surviving populations, those populations were desperate and grateful for help. They immediately wanted to join the coalition and benefit from superior technology. But these humans had technology of their own. They had survived and grown strong without any help. They might not want to be rescued at all. The communication session continued for several more hours. Both sides shared more information, but both sides also became more careful about what they revealed. Trust was building, but slowly. As the day ended, Zethara Lynn prepared to return to her ship. Before leaving, she used her translator device to speak one sentence in human language. "We need to talk more. Much more." Li Wujin nodded. "Yes. But next time we bring more people, important people, people who can make decisions." Both sides knew that this first meeting was just the beginning. What happened next would change the future of both species and maybe the entire galaxy. 3 days after first contact, diplomat Li Sora stood at the entrance to New Busan, waiting for the most important visitors in human history. Behind her, the tunnel stretched away into the depths of the earth, lit by soft white lights that had burned continuously for thousands of years. High Coordinator Thexian Vel and his diplomatic team approached the tunnel entrance in their floating transport. The alien leader had requested permission to see the human underground cities. Li Sora had spent those 3 days convincing the council that this was necessary. "Welcome to our world," Li Sora said through the translation device that communications specialist Choi Mina had built with Velthari help. "Please follow me and try not to be too surprised by what you see." The translation device worked both ways, so Thexian's response came through clearly. "We are prepared for anything." Li Sora smiled. "No, you are not." The descent into New Busan took 20 minutes in the high-speed transport cars that ran on magnetic rails. As they dropped deeper, Thexian and his team saw something they had never imagined possible. The tunnels were not crude caves carved by desperate people. They were engineered masterworks, perfectly round and smooth, with walls that gleamed like polished metal. Air moved through the tunnels in carefully controlled currents that kept everything clean and fresh. Water flowed in clear channels along the tunnel walls, so pure it looked like liquid crystal. "How deep does this go?" asked Science Commander Yextal Moore. "This transport goes down 8 kilometers, Li Sora replied. "But some of our tunnels go much deeper. We built our cities near the heat of the deep earth." When they reached the main level of New Busan, the aliens saw something that challenged everything they thought they knew about technological development. The city stretched away in all directions, a vast space carved from living rock but filled with light and life. Buildings rose in graceful curves from the stone floor, their walls glowing with soft light that came from within the material itself. Gardens filled the spaces between buildings, growing food and flowers under artificial suns that provided exactly the right kind of light for each plant. Thousands of people moved through the city on foot, on bicycles and in small quiet vehicles. They wore simple clothes in bright colors and they looked healthy and happy. Children played in parks where trees grew up toward the stone ceiling high above. 50 million people live here? Thexian asked, his translator struggling with the concepts of amazement. "This is just one of 12 cities," Li Sora replied. "We have others under every continent. They are all connected by the tunnel system you saw." Chief Engineer Yoon Jae-ho met them at the city center, a large open space with a dome that showed images of the surface world and the stars beyond. He was a practical man who had spent his life maintaining the systems that kept their people alive. "You want to know how we did it?" he said simply. "The answer is we had no choice. When the ice came, our ancestors had 2 options: die on the surface or live underground. So they dug." He led them to the power center, where massive machines drew heat from deep in the earth and turned it into electricity. "Geothermal power," he explained. "The Earth's core is hot. We just had to learn how to reach it safely." The water treatment center was next. Engineer Park Da-eun showed them systems that cleaned and recycled every drop of water in the city. "Nothing is wasted," she said. "Water goes from people to plants to fish tanks to cleaning systems and back to people. We have been recycling the same water for 20,000 years. The food production areas amazed the aliens even more. Physicist Dr. Bae Seung-ho explained how they grew everything they needed in vertical farms that reached from floor to ceiling. "We learned to make soil from rock," he said. "We learned to make the right light for each plant. We learned to grow, more food in less space than anyone thought possible. But the real shock came when they visited the manufacturing centers. The humans didn't just survive underground, they had continued to advance their technology. We developed quantum tunneling about 300 years ago, Dr. Bay explained, showing them machines that could cut through solid rock as if it were soft clay. It made expanding our cities much easier. Medical Director Dr. Ro Yunji showed them the hospitals where human medicine had advanced far beyond what their ancestors knew. We eliminated most diseases, she said. We learned to repair genetic damage. We extended human life to an average of 200 years. But how did you know about the stars? Asked xenobiologist Commander Zethara Lin. How did you develop space technology while living underground? Historian Dr. Shin Nari took them to the observatory, a massive chamber at the top of the city with instruments that could see through the earth to watch the sky. We never stopped learning about the universe, she said. We always planned to return to the surface someday. Then she showed them something that made Thexian's skin turn colors they had never seen before. We detected your ships 2 years ago, Dr. Shin said simply. We have been watching you watch us. We know about your coalition. We know about the other species you have helped. We have been preparing for this meeting for a very long time. Defense. Coordinator Kim Junseo stepped forward. We know you mean well, he said. But we also know what happens to species that accept too much help from the coalition. They stop developing their own solutions. They become dependent. Thexian realized that every assumption he had made about humanity was wrong. They weren't desperate survivors grateful for rescue. They were a sophisticated civilization that had developed technologies the coalition had never seen before. Your people, he said slowly, chose one of the hardest possible paths to survival. And not only did you survive, you became stronger. That's what humans do, said Council Leader Nam Tai-jin, who had been quietly listening to everything. We adapt. We learn. We grow. The Ice Age didn't defeat us. It taught us. The tour continued for hours. The aliens saw universities where human knowledge was preserved and expanded. They saw art galleries where humans had created beauty, even in the depths of the earth. They saw libraries that contained 50,000 years of human learning. They saw workshops where humans had invented new materials, new energy sources, and new ways of solving problems. They saw laboratories where human scientists were working on technologies that even the coalition didn't have. Most importantly, they saw a people who had never given up hope, who had spent 50 millennia preparing to return to the surface world. Their ancestors remembered. We don't need to be saved, Lee Sora explained as the tour ended. We saved ourselves, but we are willing to talk about working together as equals. Thexian looked around at the impossible city that surrounded them, 50 million people living comfortably in a space carved from solid rock. Technology that rivaled anything in the coalition. A culture that had preserved human values while adapting to unimaginable challenges. Equals, he repeated. Yes, I think that is exactly what you are. For the first time in coalition history, they had encountered a species that didn't need to be rescued. Instead, this species might be able to teach them things they had never imagined possible. The question now was whether the rest of the coalition would see it the same way. Ambassador Song Hye-jin walked through the cultural exchange center that had been built on the surface above New Busan. Half of the building was designed for humans, with solid walls and bright artificial lighting. The other half was designed for the Velthari, with floating platforms and the special gases they needed to breathe. It had been 6 months since first contact, and the exchanges were going well. Too well, some people thought. The Velthari are offering us membership in the coalition, Song Hye-jin explained to the morning briefing. Full membership, with access to all their technology and trade networks. Military analyst Kwon Dong-min frowned at his tablet. What do they want in return? That's what worries me, Song Hye-jin replied. They say they want nothing. They just want to welcome humanity into the galactic community. In her private office, anthropologist Dr. Han Bo-ra was studying reports about the other species in the coalition. What she had learned made her uncomfortable. The Zephyrians had been a water-breathing species on a planet where the oceans were drying up. The Coalition had saved them by moving their entire population to new water worlds. But in the 50 years since the rescue, the Zephyrians had stopped developing their own technology. They now depended completely on Coalition systems for everything, the Yagitir. Christek had been master builders who created incredible cities from living stone. But after the Coalition helped them recover from a war, they stopped building. Now they lived in Coalition-designed structures and had forgotten their own construction methods. Every species the Coalition had helped showed the same pattern. They became grateful clients rather than independent partners. Dr. Han Bo-Ra sent her report to the Council with a simple conclusion. The Coalition doesn't mean to control other species, but that's what always happens. They solve problems so completely that the rescued species never learn to solve problems for themselves. Meanwhile, on the Velthari command ship, Fleet Commander Nexter Yal was arguing with High Coordinator Thexian about the human situation. "They are dangerous," Nexter insisted. "Every other species we have encountered was grateful for our help. These humans question everything we offer. They want to examine our technology instead of simply accepting it." "That's what makes them valuable," Thexian replied. "They think differently than any species we have known." "Different thinking leads to unpredictable behavior," Nexter argued. "They could destabilize the entire Coalition." The argument represented a growing divide among the Velthari. Some saw humanity as a refreshing addition to the galactic community. Others saw them as a threat to the order that had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. On Earth's surface, the first permanent human settlements were taking shape. Captain O.G. Huan led the construction teams that were building New Sol, the first surface city in 50,000 years. But the humans were building it their way, using their own technology. When the Velthari offered to help with advanced construction methods, the humans politely declined. "We need to learn how to live on the surface again," Captain O explained to xenobiologist Commander Zethara Lin. "If we let you build our cities for us, we will never really understand how to live up here." Zethara Lin found this attitude puzzling. In her experience, most species wanted to skip the learning process and go straight to the benefits of advanced technology. The philosophical differences became more serious when young council member Park Min-seok began advocating for faster integration with the Coalition. "Why should we spend decades learning to build surface cities when the Velthari can teach us to build them in months?" he argued at a council meeting. "Why should we develop our own space travel when they can give us ships that travel faster than light?" "Because," replied ethics advisor Dr. An Yu-jin, "every time we let someone else solve our problems, we become a little less human. Our ancestors didn't survive 50,000 years underground so we could become dependent on aliens the moment we reach the surface." The debate split the human population. Younger people, especially those who had grown up hearing stories about the surface world, wanted to accept Coalition help and expand quickly to the stars. Older people, who remembered the lessons of underground survival, wanted to develop human solutions to surface challenges. The split became dangerous when some humans began secretly working with Coalition representatives to bypass the official diplomatic process. Dr. Kim Yoo-jin, a biotechnology specialist, had been sharing human genetic research with Velthari scientists without permission from the Council. When Security Chief Lim Hae-won discovered the unauthorized cooperation, it created a crisis that threatened the entire relationship. "We trusted you to represent humanity," Council Leader Nam Tae-jin told Dr. Kim. "Instead, you have been giving away our most important secrets." "I was trying to help both species," Dr. Kim replied. "Human genetic research could help the Coalition solve medical problems they have struggled with for centuries. Coalition technology could extend human life even further." "At what cost?" asked Dr. An Yu-jin. "If we give away our knowledge freely, what do we have left that makes us unique?" The incident forced both sides to confront uncomfortable truths. The Coalition was used to being the source of all advanced knowledge in their relationships. The humans were used to being self-reliant and independent. Ambassador Song Hye-jin called for a formal review of the relationship. Representatives from both sides met in the Cultural Exchange Center to address the growing tensions. "We need to understand each other's fears," Song Hye-jin began. The coalition fears that humanity will disrupt the peace they have maintained for thousands of years. Humanity fears that joining the coalition will cost us our independence. High Coordinator Thexian spoke for the coalition. We have brought peace and prosperity to dozens of species. We have ended wars, prevented extinctions, and created a galactic community where all beings can thrive. Why do humans resist something that has worked so well for so long? Council Leader Nam Taijin spoke for humanity. Because we have learned that the greatest growth comes from facing challenges ourselves. When someone else solves your problems, you stop learning how to solve them. We don't want to become another grateful client species. The meeting continued for hours without resolution. Both sides understood the other's position, but neither was willing to compromise their core values. The crisis deepened when Deep Space Monitor Zhang Se-young detected new signals from space. Ships were approaching Earth, but they were not coalition vessels. The signals are hostile, Zhang reported to the emergency session. Military formations, heavy weapons, approach vector designed for attack rather than diplomacy. High Coordinator Thexian's skin turned dark blue with worry when he heard the news. The Korth Empire, he said. They must have detected our terraforming operations and come to investigate. Who are the Korth Empire? Asked military strategist General Lim Hae-wan. Our ancient enemies, Thexian replied. A militaristic alliance that conquers rather than cooperates. They have been expanding toward this sector for decades. If they find a newly awakened world under coalition protection, they will attack. The approaching threat forced both sides to face a new question. Could they work together to defend Earth, or would their differences make cooperation impossible when it mattered most? General Lim Hae-wan studied the data about the approaching Korth fleet. How long do we have? 2 weeks, maybe 3, Thexian replied. Then we need to stop arguing about philosophy and start talking about survival, General Lim said. Can the coalition defend Earth? Alone? Probably not, Thexian admitted. The Korth fleet is larger than anything we have in this sector. Then, said General Lim, it's time to find out if humans and aliens can fight together as well as they can argue with each other. The Coalition Council chamber had never seen anything like the emergency session called to discuss the human situation. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered on the giant station that served as the Coalition's capital, floating in space between 3 stars. Elder Council member Kexhan Tor of the founding species spoke first. His people were ancient with crystalline bodies that rang like bells when they moved. They had created the Coalition millions of years ago. The humans present a unique problem, Kexhan said, his voice creating harmonic echoes in the chamber. Every species we have welcomed into the Coalition has followed the same pattern. They accept our help gratefully, integrate peacefully, and contribute to galactic stability. But these humans question everything. Progressive leader Mexton Joel from the Velthari responded, Perhaps that is exactly what the Coalition needs. We have become so good at solving problems that we may have forgotten how to face new challenges. New challenges? Kexhan's crystalline form flickered with angry red light. The Coalition has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Why should we risk that stability for one stubborn species? On Earth, the humans were dealing with their own internal conflicts. The approaching Korth fleet had forced everyone to take sides quickly. Military strategist General Lim Hae-wan stood before a map showing the positions of enemy ships. The Korth will be here in 10 days, she announced to the combined Human and Velthari Defense Council. They're bringing 300 ships, including battlecruisers that can destroy entire cities from space. High Coordinator Thexian floated beside the map, his skin showing nervous purple patterns. The Coalition has 60 ships in this sector. Under normal circumstances, we would request immediate evacuation of all civilians to safer worlds. And abandon Earth? Asked Council Leader Nam Tae-jin. Never. Our people spent 50,000 years preparing to return to the surface. We won't run away the moment we get here. Chief Military Engineer Ko Tai-yoon had been studying Coalition ship designs for weeks. We might not have to run, he said. I think we can help. He activated a holographic display showing technical drawings. Human tunneling technology could be adapted for space combat. We can create ships that move through folded space, the way our underground transports move through tunnels. Science Commander Yextal Moore studied the designs with growing excitement. This could work. Ships that can appear anywhere instantly strike and disappear again. The Korth have never faced anything like this. But Fleet Commander Nextur Yal was skeptical. Untested technology in a desperate situation? This is madness. We should evacuate Earth and let the Korth have it. No, said General Lim firmly. Earth is not negotiable. If you want to evacuate, go ahead. Humans will defend our world with or without coalition help. The blunt statement shocked the Velthari delegation. No coalition member had ever refused evacuation before. No species had ever chosen to fight hopeless battles rather than accept safe retreat. Deep Space Monitor Zhang Seyong interrupted the meeting with urgent news. The Korth fleet just changed course. They're accelerating. They'll be here in 6 days, not 10. Why the change? asked Thexian. I think they detected our joint operations, Zhang replied. They know that humans and coalition forces are working together. That probably makes Earth a higher priority target. The news forced an immediate decision. There was no time for careful planning or political negotiations. Either they worked together now, or Earth would fall. Admiral Park Sang-min took charge of the Combined Defense Force. She was one of the few humans who had experience with space operations, having commanded the deep space monitoring stations. We have advantages the Korth don't expect, she announced. They've fought the coalition many times, so they know coalition tactics. But they've never fought humans. Chief Military Engineer Ko Tai-yoon presented his plans for hybrid human coalition ships. The designs combined human quantum tunneling technology with Velthari energy weapons and shields. The tunneling drives will let us appear anywhere in the battle zone instantly, he explained. We can hit them from directions they can't predict or defend against. But the ships would take 4 days to build, and they needed volunteers to pilot them. The quantum tunneling drives were so new that no one knew how dangerous they might be. Captain Kim Dobbin volunteered immediately. I've been flying underground transports for 15 years, she said. How different can space be? 30 more human pilots volunteered within an hour. They would fly ships that had never been tested in combat, using technology that might kill them before the enemy got a chance. On the coalition station, the political crisis was getting worse. Half the council wanted to help defend Earth. The other half wanted to abandon the humans before they destabilized the entire coalition. The humans will never be proper coalition members, argued Elder Council member Kexhan. They refuse to accept our guidance. They insist on their own solutions to every problem. If we help them now, other species might start questioning our methods. Maybe, replied Progressive Leader Mexton. Other species should question our methods. The humans have shown us something. We forgot long ago that the best help is not solving someone's problems for them, but standing beside them while they solve the problems themselves. The debate was interrupted by emergency communications from Earth. The Korth fleet had sent a message. General Lim Haiwan read the message to the council. Surrender the world called Earth to the Korth Empire. Remove all coalition forces immediately. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of the planet and all life on it. The message was followed by a demonstration of Korth power. One of their ships fired a single shot that vaporized an asteroid the size of a mountain. They're serious, said Admiral Park Sang-min. They will destroy Earth if we resist. High Coordinator Thexian made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Then we don't resist, he said. We attack. The plan was desperate and dangerous. The human coalition hybrid ships would use quantum tunneling to get inside the Korth formation before the enemy knew they were there. They would strike at the command ships and try to create enough confusion for the main coalition fleet to attack effectively. But it meant that Earth's defense would depend on untested technology, piloted by humans who had never fought in space before. Surface Defense Coordinator Lee Kyung-ho prepared the planet's ground defenses. If the space battle failed, the Korth would land troops. When they did, they would face enemies who had spent 50,000 years becoming experts at underground warfare. Let them come, Lee told his troops. They think they're conquering a normal planet. They have no idea what they're really facing. Strategic advisor Dr. Cho Yun-soo studied everything the coalition knew about Korth tactics. They always attack the same way, she reported. Overwhelming firepower, direct assault, complete destruction of resistance. They've never had to adapt because nothing has ever forced them to. Then, said Admiral Park, it's time to give them something they've never seen before. The human coalition fleet prepared for battle. 35 hybrid ships, each one a gamble on human innovation and alien technology working together. Behind them, the coalition's regular fleet waited for their moment to attack. In the underground cities, 50 million humans went about their daily lives, trusting that their defenders would find a way to protect the world their ancestors had dreamed of reclaiming. The Korth fleet approached Earth like a dark storm, confident that another world would fall to their power. They had conquered dozens of planets and defeated coalition forces many times before, but they had never fought humans, and they were about to learn why that mattered. Captain Kim Dobbin sat in the pilot seat of the ship Deep Thunder, watching the stars disappear as the quantum tunnel drive activated. Around her, 34 other hybrid human coalition ships vanished from normal space, becoming invisible to enemy sensors. Tunnel formation stable, she reported to Admiral Park Sang-min. We're inside their defensive perimeter. The Korth fleet hung in space like a collection of dark metal spears, each ship bristling with weapons designed to destroy planets. Their formation was perfect for traditional space combat, with heavy ships in the center and smaller ships protecting the flanks, but no one had ever attacked them from inside their own formation before. All ships begin attack pattern thunder, Admiral Park commanded. 35 ships materialized simultaneously in the center of the Korth formation. Before the enemy could react, they opened fire with weapons that combined human precision targeting with Velthari energy technology. The effect was devastating. 3 Korth command ships exploded before they could raise their shields. Smaller vessels spun helplessly as their control systems were destroyed by precisely targeted strikes. "What is this?" roared Korth war leader Thakmor from his flagship. "Where did these ships come from?" His tactical officer was staring at displays that made no sense. "Sir, they appeared from nowhere. Our sensors show no engine signatures, no approach vectors. They simply materialized in our midst." "Impossible," Thakmor snarled. "Coalition ships cannot do this." "Sir," the officer replied, "these are not coalition ships." Captain Kim Dobbin heard the communication intercepts through her translator. The Korth were confused and angry, trying to understand an attack method they had never encountered before. "Phase 2, Admiral Park ordered. Scatter and harass." The hybrid ships vanished again, reappearing throughout the Korth formation. They struck quickly at engines and weapons, then disappeared before the enemy could return fire. It was like fighting ghosts that could appear anywhere and strike without warning. On the coalition command ship, High Coordinator Thexian watched the battle with amazement. In 500 years of warfare, the Korth have never been tactically surprised. "How are the humans doing this?" "They fight like they survived," replied Science Commander Yex Talmor. "Quick, unpredictable, always adapting to new situations." The main coalition fleet moved in to support the attack, but they found that human tactics had already broken the Korth formation. Enemy ships were scattered across space, trying to defend against attacks that could come from any direction. On Earth's surface, Surface Defense Coordinator Lee Kyung-ho watched the space battle through telescopes and sensors. "The first wave is working," he reported to the Underground Command Center. "But the Korth are adapting. They're trying to land troops." 12 Korth troop transports broke away from the main battle and headed for Earth's surface. Each transport carried 1,000 soldiers equipped with weapons that could level cities. "Let them come," Lee said calmly. "Captain O. Ji-hwan, are your teams ready?" "Ready and waiting," Captain O replied from his position in the tunnels beneath. New Seoul. The Korth transports landed in 3 locations around the planet, choosing flat areas that looked suitable for establishing bases. The enemy soldiers poured out of their ships, expecting to face primitive surface defenses. Instead, they found empty landscape. The attacks came from below. Human soldiers emerged from quantum tunnels that opened directly beneath enemy positions. They struck hard and fast, then vanished back underground before the Korth could organize a response. War leader Kextal, commanding the ground invasion, spoke to his troops through their communication system. "Where are they? Our sensors show thousands of humans in this area, but we see nothing." Then the ground beneath his feet erupted, and Captain Ojiwan emerged with his strike team. The underground warfare techniques that humans had perfected over 50,000 years proved devastatingly effective against enemies who had only fought surface battles. The Korth found themselves fighting an enemy who could appear anywhere, strike from any direction, and disappear into terrain that seemed solid. In space, the battle was turning decisively in favor of the human coalition alliance. Strategic advisor Dr. Cho Yon-soo had been right about Korth tactics. They depended on overwhelming firepower and direct assault. When those methods failed, they had no backup plans. War leader Thakmor, his tactical officer, reported, "We have lost 60% of our ships. Ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation. They report that the planet's defenses are unlike anything we have ever encountered." Thakmor stared at the battle displays. The mysterious ships were still appearing and disappearing throughout his formation, destroying his vessels with surgical precision. On the planet below, his ground forces were being defeated by enemies who fought like the landscape itself had come alive against them. "What kind of species is this?" he demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Kim Da-bin had used her ship's quantum tunnel drive to appear directly beside the Korth flagship. "We are humans," she said over the open communication channel, her words translated into Korth language. "This is our world. You should leave." Admiral Park Sang-min had been waiting for this moment. The Korth fleet was broken and confused. Their ground forces were trapped and defeated. It was time to end the battle. "All coalition ships final assault," she ordered. "All human ships cover the coalition advance." The combined fleet struck the remaining Korth ships with coordinated attacks that the enemy could not counter. Within an hour, the battle was over. War leader Thakmor found himself in the position no Korth commander had ever experienced, requesting terms for surrender. "We withdraw from this system," he transmitted to Admiral Park. "But know this, the Empire will remember what happened here. Other fleets will come." "Let them come," Admiral Park replied. "Earth will be ready." The aftermath of the battle changed everything. News of the human victory spread throughout the galaxy, reaching species that had never heard of Earth or humanity. On the Coalition station, Elder Council member Kexhan Tor addressed the emergency session. "The humans have proven something we thought impossible," he admitted. "They have shown that species can grow stronger through challenges rather than weaker. They have demonstrated military innovations that even we can learn from." Progressive leader Mexton Joel spoke for the new consensus. "The coalition needs members who can contribute as equals, not just clients who accept our guidance. The humans have earned their place among us." 6 months later, President Yoon Da-young stood in the Assembly Hall of New Busan, preparing to sign the Treaty of New Busan. She had been elected as Earth's first unified leader, representing both the underground cities and the growing surface settlements. "This treaty establishes humanity as a full and equal member of the coalition," she announced to the cheering crowd. "We join not as a rescued species but as partners in building a better galaxy." High Coordinator Thexian signed for the coalition. "Today," he said, "the galaxy becomes a larger place. The humans have taught us that the best help we can give other species is not to solve their problems for them, but to stand beside them while they solve their own problems." Dr. Seo Min-jun, appointed as the official chronicler of human coalition relations, began documenting the incredible story. His first report would be titled, "How a Species That Should Have Died Instead Taught the Galaxy How to Live." The underground cities remained active and populated, serving as centers of learning and innovation. But the surface cities grew rapidly as humans reclaimed their ancestral home. The combination of underground resilience and surface opportunities created a civilization unlike any other in the galaxy. Captain Kim Da-bin was promoted to admiral, and placed in charge of developing quantum tunnel technology for the entire Coalition fleet. Her innovations would revolutionize space travel and defense throughout the galaxy. General Lim Hae-wan established the Human Coalition Military Academy, where officers from all species learned the underground warfare techniques that had proven so effective against the Korth. But perhaps the most important change was philosophical. The Coalition had spent millions of years helping species by solving their problems for them. The humans proved that sometimes the best help is simply providing support while people solve their own problems. 3 years after first contact, Earth had become one of the most important worlds in the Coalition, not because aliens had saved it, but because humans had saved themselves and then shared what they learned with others. The Ice Age that should have destroyed humanity instead forged them into something stronger. When the aliens came to resurrect a dead world, they discovered that death and resurrection weren't always what they seemed. Sometimes the species you think you're saving ends up saving you instead. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give, someone isn't solving their problems but believing they can solve their problems themselves. Earth rose not because aliens lifted it up, but because humans had never really fallen down. They had simply learned to thrive in the dark, waiting for their chance to return to the light.